So the Mishnah in Masechet Ta'anit taught, Mishenechnas ab ma'atim b'simcha. So this Mishnah, we find it quoted both by Harambam and Mishneh Torah, and we find it again by Maran and Shulchan Aruch. So based on this teaching of the Mishnah, there are several halachot that apply during the 9 days and several minhagim, customs that we've accepted upon ourselves during this time period. So I want to try to cover the various halachot, minhagim, and hopefully towards the end maybe we'll have time for some questions. So since the rabbis taught, En simcha ela babasar, ve'en simcha ela bayain, right? There's no happiness without meat, there's no happiness without wine. It became customary to refrain from meat and wine during the 9 days. Now it's important to note that the fact that we don't eat meat or we don't drink wine during the 9 days, this is not a halakha from the Talmud. The halakha from the Talmud only restricts meat and wine for the Seudat Mafseket, the final meal that you eat prior to the fast. However, Harambam writes that in his time it was already widespread for Shavua Shehalbo, Shavua Shehalbo, the week in which the fast falls. Hayu mikomot, yesh mikomot, there were some places that did it for all 9 days. That's what we find in Harambam. But the Magid Mishneh, commentary on Harambam, said in his place, this is around the same time, in his place, they ate meat the whole 9 days. It was only Erev Tisha B'Av or Seudat Mafseket, and this is the custom of the Yemenites still today. Yemenite Jews do not have the custom to refrain from meat or wine during the 9 days. It's only Seudat Mafseket, some Erev Tisha B'Av, the whole Erev Tisha B'Av. The Egyptians have the custom for the 9 days, but they didn't accept the custom with regards to chicken. So they'll eat chicken throughout the 9 days. The custom of halab was the entire 9 days, meat and wine. In fact, they called it Rafa' Sakin. They would hide the knife, right? The Hagahar Amar bi Moshe Israelish, right? So they would hide the knife. It was the Matzni'in Sakin, the Shahita knife, and from that we have that expression Rafa' Sakin. It's referring to the 9 days, right? So there's no meat and no wine. But there's exceptions. There's a lot of exceptions, especially since it's not a law from the Talmud. We're going to learn about various exceptions. So first of all, everybody, Sfaradim and Ashkenazim, eat meat, of course, in honor of Shabbat during the 9 days. There's nobody that refrains from meat or wine on Shabbat. With regards to Rosh Chodesh, there's different customs. The general custom amongst the Sfaradim, including the Halabim and including our community till today, is that we eat meat and we drink wine in honor of Rosh Chodesh. I know that you're not eating meat and drinking wine now, but that's not because of the custom. According to our custom, you could eat meat and drink wine. Many Ashkenazim are stringent even on Rosh Chodesh itself. And we find that a lot of the restaurants, even if they're Sephardic owned, even in Sephardic neighborhoods, the hashkahot are restricting them and they're not letting them serve meat on Rosh Chodesh. So I don't know if it's really a hashkaha issue. It's a minhag issue. Right? So if the minhag of a significant amount of the people in the area is to eat meat, there should not be any problem. In fact, the Chamadia Yosef rules that a kosher restaurant can serve meat throughout the entire 9 days. Right? He says, he brings a lot of reasons for it. He says, first of all, meat is available. So it's not a lifnei iver lo titen mikshol. A person can get meat somewhere else. You can go to a restaurant which the hashkaha doesn't restrict him. He can go to the butcher and buy meat. He maybe has meat in his freezer. In other words, a person that doesn't want to observe the custom, he's not depending on this restaurant or that restaurant to eat meat. So it's something that's available. Second of all, he says that we don't really apply the law of lifnei iver lo titen mikshol on something that's a custom, right? It's not a law from the Talmud. It's not a Yisur Deoraita, and therefore, there's no prohibition. And again, there are many exceptional cases where a person's allowed to eat meat. For instance, a person's sick, even if he's not in danger, right? Bimkom hawali lo gazru rabanan. So a person's sick, so a guy comes in, does the owner know if he has diabetes, if he has this, if he has that? There's many people, they're not visibly sick, right? He needs to eat meat. A woman who's nursing, for instance. So if she feels that in order for her baby to get its full nourishment, in order for it to have proper food for her baby, she needs to eat meat, she may eat meat, right? And he also says that a meneket, a woman who's nursing, already has a din of a cholah. She's weaker. She's not in her full strength as an ordinary woman. So since there's exceptional cases, and there's Yemenites, there's Egyptian who wants to have chicken, right? So since it's Talui Minhag, for this reason, Acham Yosef does not restrict restaurants from opening. And then he brings another reason. If he tells all the kosher restaurants, all the ones with the good hashgaha to close, what's left? The ones that aren't kosher, the ones that don't have the proper hashgaha, somebody who's not careful with minhagim, often is not careful with halachot, right? And he might end up eating things he's not supposed to eat. So there's more of a lifnei iver by closing than there is of a lifnei iver by opening. That's the Pesach of Chavadia Yosef. What about children? Can you cook meat and serve to children during the 9 days? Again, Chavadia is lenient with children. He says a child, once they're 12 and over, you should be stringent. Of course, once they're bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah, they're obligated within the custom. But even a bar mitzvah, even a boy who's 12, he should be mahmir, he should be stringent. But up until 12, they need it. They need the protein. They're weak. They're growing. There's no need to be stringent with the children. And all the more so if you have leftovers from Rosh Chodesh, leftovers from Shabbat. With regards to leftovers, even with regards to adults, the custom is to be lenient. Do we have a mahloket, a difference of opinion amongst the poskim, the later authorities, whether we can be lenient with leftovers from Rosh Chodesh and Shabbat? And it's based on how you apply the Talmudic principle of ho'il v'ishtereh ishtereh. Sometimes we say, once something becomes permissible, it remains permissible. And there's a difference of opinion. Do we apply it to the case of meat during the 9 days, or we don't? The Haida applies it to meat during the 9 days. Something that you cooked for Rosh Chodesh or for Shabbat, there's leftovers. The Haida, other later authorities also agree. There's others that are stringent and say no, it doesn't apply. They say it doesn't have to do with the food itself. It has to do with the days, or it has to do with the feeling you're supposed to have during the days, and therefore they're stringent. But the general principle is halacha kidibrei hamekel ba'avel. We are generally adopt the lenient opinions when there's a difference of opinion, when it has to do with laws of mourning. This is even said for avilut hadasha, for somebody that lost a relative that he has to mourn for. All the more so for avilut yeshana, right? Ancient avilut. This is something from centuries ago. We say kil tefeh. It's more lenient than somebody that lost a relative in the last week or the last month or so on and so forth. But even in that case, when someone lost a relative and it's new and it's fresh, we still follow the lenient opinion. Chavadia Yosef says all the more here. So the general custom in the Syrian community was to be lenient with leftovers. I remember as a kid growing up, attending the classes of Dennis Dweck, alav shalom. He always said our custom was like the Haida, like those later authorities that were lenient with leftovers. Of course, there's always people that are mahmir ala tzmam, the people that are stringent upon themselves. I can't say everybody was lenient, but the general custom was to be lenient with leftovers, all the more so for children, where Chavadia Yosef says that you could even cook new meat on their behalf. And there are later authorities like Rabbi Haim Palaji. Rabbi Haim Palaji was the chief rabbi of the Turkish Empire in the 19th century. And he says, and it's not only him, his son Yefilelev, and other later authorities say that you could be lenient with leftovers, all the more so when you're serving it for Motzei Shabbat, Seudah Rev'it. A person is not only obligated to have 3 meals on Shabbat, there's a 4th meal on Motzei Shabbat. A person's obligated to have every Saturday night. And since Saturday night there's still a he'ara of Shabbat, there's still the glow of Shabbat remains. Therefore, a person that wants to serve leftovers of Shabbat meal in honor of Seudah Rev'it during the 9 days, he says this is a good practice. Not only is it mutar mitzvah, it's even a mitzvah to do so. The poskim do not allow one to cook new meat for Seudah Rev'it. It's not an actual Shabbat meal, but since it has the he'ara of Shabbat, if the food's left over from Shabbat, there are many that are lenient in that way. So for children, for Seudah Rev'it, it's even more lenient. But as I said, our custom is to eat it even on an ordinary weeknight, even for adults. Another time that that meat is permissible during the 9 days is for a Seudat Mitzvah. Seudat Mitzvah could be a Brit Milah, could be a Pidyon Haben, it could be a Siyum Masechet, Kavod Yosef says if a boy turns 13 during the 9 days and he has his Seudat Bar Mitzvah, it's considered a Seudat Mitzvah, and you could serve meat. And of course, everybody that's invited to the party, whatever it is, Haknasat Sefer Torah is also a Seudat Mitzvah. So all of these mitzvot, whoever is invited and normally would attend this party is permitted to eat meat. But a person who has no connection whatsoever shouldn't get themselves invited, right? If they have no connection whatsoever for the purpose of eating meat. No, if you're celebrating the mitzvah and you would be celebrating the mitzvah, you could eat meat. But I would ask another question. What about the custom that's developed in recent times? Many people have a Siyum for the purpose of eating meat, right? So they take a short Masechet Torayot, it's 12 or 13 dapim, right? Or another short Masechet, and they study it specifically. They start it right before the 9 days or on the 9 days, and in 2-3 days they finish it, a week they finish it, with the express purpose of eating meat. Yosef is not makpid. He says you could do that. In fact, he says it's better to be studying Torah. This is a more of a kapara and more of Tisha B'Av to bring back rebuild the Horban than refraining from the meat and eating dairy. So he's all for the learning, making the siyumim, even if they're being on purpose. He says it doesn't only have to be a masechet of Gemara. It could even be a masechet of Mishnayot if you learn it with the commentary of Rabbeinu Obadiah mi Bartenura. Rabbeinu Obadiah mi Bartenura usually brings the main points of the Gemara. So since you're learning the Mishnah with understanding, you're analyzing it, and you're getting the main points of the Gemara, Yosef is lenient. He said it's not only the actual Masechtot of the Gemara, there are later Masechtot, Masechet Kala, Masechet Terech Eretz. They're not part of the actual Shas, but you find them, a lot of them are from the Geonim and so on and so forth. You could also study those, and you can make a Siyum, and you could eat meat. What about vegetables that were cooked with meat, but you took the meat out of the dish, and it's called tabshil shel basar. You just want to eat the vegetables. B'akar hadin, it doesn't have the status of meat, but it's customary also to refrain from that type of dish during the 9 days. But if you took vegetables and cooked it in a meat pot, even though the meat pot was used within 24 hours for meat, the vegetables are considered totally parv, whether it's vegetables or rice or any other parv item that you cooked in a meat pot. Even if you just cooked meat in it an hour ago, if the pot is clean, the vegetables are not considered. They don't have a status of meat. You could eat them with dairy, and also you could eat them during the 9 days. If you accidentally make a beracha on meat or wine, and in fact, it's interesting that I found this year, it's not only wine. Maran in the Beit Yosef also prohibits grape juice. So in Shulchan Aruch, it's not so clear. Shulchan Aruch, he says basar v'yain, and then when he talks about seudat mafseket, which is more stringent, he says afilu yain migito, which would include grape juice. Wine, which is not yet fermented, it's within the first 3 days. Then you might think from that, without looking in the Beit Yosef, that he's only stringent with grape juice for the seudat mafseket itself. But if you look in the Beit Yosef, where he talks about the seudat mafseket, he said, I already wrote about this earlier, and he's referring to when he spoke about the 9 days, and there in the Beit Yosef, he also prohibits grape juice. So it's not only meat, wine, or grape juice. So a person forgot about it, he accidentally made a beracha on grape juice or wine or meat or whatever it is, chicken. Since a beracha Havdalah is considered a severe violation, and as we said, eating meat or drinking wine during the 9 days, it's only a custom. So he should take a taste so that he shouldn't have a beracha Havdalah, and he shouldn't eat more of it. What he needs to fulfill his obligation, so he doesn't make a beracha Havdalah. Now we spoke about the fact that when you eat meat, leftovers from Motzei Shabbat, there's a he'arav Shabbat, there's a glow of Shabbat. Also applies this to the women that are cooking on Friday afternoon, after Hatzot, after midday. Midday is approximately 1 o'clock. After 1 o'clock, a woman's cooking. She could taste the food in order to make sure that the food tastes properly for Shabbat. If she has to add spice, if she has to add a flavor, whatever she has to do to modify the food. So tasting food in honor of Shabbat is permissible during the 9 days, especially if it's after midday on Friday. So now the question comes up with, what about when you make Havdalah next Saturday night? It's during the 9 days. It's not Shabbat anymore, right? It's not considered leftovers from Shabbat. Can you make Havdalah on wine? Maran Shulchan Aruch writes that the prohibition or the custom of wine does not apply to a koshel mitzvah. It's for a koshel ta'anug. It's when a person is drinking wine for enjoyment. When you're making a beracha, the berachat Havdalah on a cup of wine, this isn't for your enjoyment. It's a koshel mitzvah, and therefore the prohibition does not apply. The Haggaha Rama, the Ashkenazic commentator, says that it's preferable, or it's customary amongst the Ashkenazim, to give the wine to a child under the age of bar mitzvah. But because of the Sephardim, Acham also says our custom is like Maran and Shulchan Aruch, the adult who makes the Havdalah on the wine makes whatever I give in, and he drinks the wine himself. What's that?
Happened to me. I was in Mary Yeshiva. They took me home to drink the wine.
Because you're Sephardi. Okay.
Did they pay you?
No. But in New York, the Divrei Malchuta is you can't give a child.
Right, so you could make it on grape juice, and you could give the grape juice to a child. Okay, so that's one of the customs that we have during the 9 days, is the refraining from the meat and the wine. So there are other halachot, other minhagim. What about purchases? What can you buy? What can't you buy during the 9 days? So as we said, the opening statement, the opening rabbinic statement is So what are some of the examples of the simcha? One of them is masa umatan shel simcha, purchases that are associated with happiness. So a classic case is purchases that you do on behalf, you're buying items for a bride or groom, right? You have an upcoming wedding, you're buying gifts for the bride, gifts for the groom, the swani, so on and so forth. All of this is considered masa umatan shel simcha, which should be avoided if possible during the 9 days. Another example might be jewelry. Jewelry, it's a luxury purchase, so it's considered masa umatan shel simcha. But there are exceptions. For instance, sometimes a person's making a wedding right after Tisha B'Av, right? Tisha B'Av is Tuesday, it could be the wedding is that weekend, or maybe even Thursday, right? 2 days after they're going to have the wedding. In such a case, if there's not going to be enough time to make certain purchases, of course you should try to buy everything before the 9 days. But if it wasn't possible, you tried, you couldn't get it, now all you have left is the 9 days, and 1 or 2 days after that it will be impossible to make the purchases. It's permissible to make the purchases during the 9 days. Or if sales are being run during the 9 days, if you wait until the 9 days are over, you might miss the sale. You're not obligated to lose money. You can make the purchase during the 9 days. There are other major purchases, right, that are not necessarily masa umatan shel simcha. Let's say you want to buy furniture, not for a bride and groom. You want to buy furniture for yourself, right? Or you're going to buy it for your children that are already married 10 or 15 years. It's not considered masa umatan shel simcha. So the poskim say, if you could delay it, it's preferable. But if not, ma'akad hadin, right? We say that it's not a masa umatan shel simcha, and you could buy it. Kamad Yosef discusses buying a new car. So he says, if the car is for business purposes, right? So it's not considered shel simcha. It's for your parnassas, to make your living. You can buy it during the 9 days. But if it's a car just for trips, for going and coming, it's a luxurious purchase. In such a case, you should only buy it again if it's on sale, right? If they say if you don't buy it by July 31st, then the price goes up, so on and so forth. In such a case, to save money, you could buy it even if it's for trips and for luxurious use.
So you can buy it, you just don't use it.
Right. So the inyan is masa umatan. If the purchase is going to give you happiness, you should avoid it unless there's other considerations, like the price will go up, or you're using it not for simcha. You're using it, you need it to get to work or to go see customers or whatever the case may be. So that's not considered simcha. What's that?
Is that also the day of Rosh Chodesh too?
So I would say that it is the day of Rosh Chodesh, because we know that meat and wine is exceptional for Rosh Chodesh because there's the mitzvah leharbot b'seudat Rosh Chodesh. But we don't see that they differentiated for Rosh Chodesh for other things other than the meat and wine. So it would include it as well.
And car is different. It smells like a new car. Even for
Right.
business.
Right. So in addition, in addition to what we said, we spoke about furniture, about a car. What about buying clothing? Buying clothing during the 9 days. So if it's something that a garment that you would make shehayanu upon, right? So we said for the 3 weeks, it's customary to avoid saying shehayanu. So if you bought a new suit during the 3 weeks, you wouldn't wear it during the 3 weeks in order to avoid saying shehayanu. But you could buy it. Once the 9 days comes in, you shouldn't buy it unless, of course, you're going to save money if there's a sale. It's not any more stringent than items for a bride and groom. But assuming that you're not going to save any money on it, you shouldn't purchase it. But if you have little items like socks or undergarments, these are things that you're not going to make shehayanu upon. It's not relevant to say that it's a purchase that's associated with simcha. So in clothes, is something that just by making the purchase, it gives you simcha. When you wear it, you're going to make shehayanu. Then you shouldn't do it during the 9 days, unless, of course, as we said, there's a monetary difference for buying it now. So, what about the law of actually wearing the clothes during the 9 days? Right? So we said if it's something that you make shehayanu, already you should try to avoid it during the 3 weeks. But what about wearing something new that doesn't necessarily require shehayanu? You bought a casual shirt. It's not something that you get so excited about, right? Can you wear it for the first time during the 9 days? So Maran and Shulchan Aruch restricts wearing new clothes only to Shavua Shahalbo. Right? That's the opinion of Maran and Shulchan Aruch. The Ashkenazim write that it's customary or for them already from the 9 days. Hakam Yosef suggests that even Sephardim should be stringent. So listen, Akar Adin is like Maran, Kibanu Horat Maran. Even Hakam is not saying that Sephardim are obligated. He says as a suggested stringency to avoid wearing new garments, even if they don't require the Berakav Shahayanu during the entire 9 days. But if somebody has any necessity to be lenient, of course he could be lenient because, as we always say, Kibanu Horat Maran. So it's really wearing something new that's not Shahayanu. Mu'akar Adin, it's only forbidden Shavua Shahalbo. But if possible, a person could be Mahmir Tavo Ala Beraka. So beyond purchases, there's also binyan shel simcha, building that is associated with happiness. So the classic case, if somebody's building a new house in honor of a new bride and groom, or he's building a house that's a leisure home, right? He has a home here in Brooklyn. Now he bought a house in Deal. He wants to build it. He wants to fix it. This is considered binyan shel simcha. Why? It's not his necessary living space. So all of that a person should avoid building during the 9 days. Hakam Yosef says that you should also try to avoid cosmetic renovations. A person wants to paint, or he's just renovating in order to make the house more beautiful, but it's not something that's actual necessity. In such a case, he should avoid that during the 9 days. But if somebody, let's say, he lives in an apartment or he lives in a small house, and now he was able to buy a house or buy a bigger house, his family's growing, this is considered a necessity for his living space. In such a case, he could build and he can do the work during the 9 days. So there's a differentiation between something that's leisure, something that's luxury. That's what we consider binyan shel simcha, or something that's for a person's necessary living space, in which case we say that it's not binyan shel simcha, and he may do it during the 9 days. So now, the question that I get all the time is, are you allowed to go swimming during the 9 days, right? So if you look in the poskim, there is no prohibition whatsoever to swim during the 9 days. According to the custom of the Sephardim, that we only refrain from showers and baths during the week in which Tisha B'Av falls, and even during that time, we only refrain from hot showers and hot baths. There's no prohibition whatsoever to go swimming in a cold pool or a cold body of water the river, the ocean, so on and so forth. In fact, we see this discussed specifically, not only by Hakam Yosef. Hakam Yosef writes it specifically, and of course he specifies that he's talking about swimming which is not mixed gender swimming, right, without any mixture of men and ladies. But a person has a pool, right, his own pool, or there's a beach where there's no mixture, it's a private beach or whatever the case may be. From the point of view of the 9 days or the week in which Tisha B'Av falls, there's no prohibition. In fact, the Shulchan Gavua, Rabbi Yosef Molko, right, he was a rabbi in Salonika in the 18th century. He writes that the custom was to even go in the Mediterranean Sea, in the Yam HaGadol, on Erev Tisha B'Av. And nobody objected. And we don't only find this in Sephardic authorities, we find it...
My mom said, no, don't go in the water.
Yeah, you're not a swimmer.
In the Mediterranean.
I'm telling you what the poskim said.
In the Mediterranean.
Shulchan Gavua was an authoritative Aharon, but we also find this from Ashkenazim. We find it from the Trumat Hadeshin. Trumat Hadeshin was in Austria in the 16th century, 15th century, 16th century, and he writes that he remembers in his youth he saw people going in the Neharot, they went in the rivers, they swam. So from all the sources, you would only have a problem swimming during the 9 days if, first of all, you had the stringency of not bathing for the entire 9 days, which many poskim have, many Ashkenazim have this stringency, and some Sephardim have this stringency as well. And if you were also stringent with cold water as well. So in such a case, so then showering, bathing, and swimming would all come under the same category. But for us, that we only restrict ourselves from hot showers and hot baths during the week in which Tisha B'Av falls. So there's at no time would we have any prohibition against swimming. What's that?
So if your pool is heated, it's a problem.
Right. So it depends how much it's heated. So when we were learning the halachot of bathing and taking showers during the week in which the Shabbat falls, I'm talking about as a kid, Rabbi Edmond Nahum was giving the class. So based on this Shulchan Gavua, right, which says you could even go in the Mediterranean Sea on Erev Tisha B'Av, he says your shower can be a typical ocean temperature. So in August, in late July, the temperature is approximately 70 degrees in the ocean. So it doesn't.
What has the heat got to do with the Shabbat?
What it does? So we're talking about the fact that you don't take hot showers because hot showers is ta'anug, that's pleasure, right? That's like going to a mehatz, going to a bathhouse. It's a heated bathhouse. That's considered washing for pleasure, as opposed to taking a cold or a cool shower, which is washing just for cleanliness, right? Person's sweating, it's the summertime, he's hot, so it's not considered washing for pleasure, it's considered washing for cleanliness. So since we know that they went in the ocean during this time, they went in the rivers that time, so when you're taking your showers during that week, right, so it could be the 70 degrees, so it doesn't mean that you only put on cold water. You can put a little hot in order to take the chill out of it, so that it's a cold shower, it's 70 degrees, it's 68, 72, in that range, something that would be comparable to going in the ocean or the river at that time of the year. So now, based on the fact that we say that you can take a hot shower up until, during the 9 days, up until Shavua Shahalvo, and also the other stringencies that apply to Shavua Shahalvo, the week in which Tisha B'Av falls. All of that, when we say Shavua Shahalvo, the week in which it falls, these are stringencies that begin this coming Saturday night, and they last generally until the fast is over. So this year, the fast is on Tuesday. Sometimes it comes on Thursday, so it's a very long time. Now it's on Tuesday, so you're talking about Sunday, Monday, and then the fast itself, the short time. So during that time, we as we said, we don't take hot showers or hot baths. We don't shave or take haircuts. And also during that time, we don't launder clothing and we don't wear freshly laundered clothing. All of this is for Shavua Shahalvo. Right? So therefore, on this coming Friday, Shabbat Chazon, because of the Sephardim, is to prepare for Shabbat the way you would for any normal Shabbat. So you could take a haircut, you could shave, you shower in hot water, you can launder your clothes during the week and wear freshly laundered clothes in honor of Shabbat. In other words, there's nothing that Sephardim do that detracts from their normal preparation for Shabbat. The Ashkenazim already have stringencies that they already started from the 9 days, so their preparations for Shabbat Chazon is limited. First of all, they're not shaving or taking haircuts already from the 17th of Tammuz, so that's out. With regards to bathing, I believe that there's a leniency maybe for their hands, for their face, for their legs, but I don't believe that they wash their entire body, that they bathe their entire body. And then with regards to clothing, they don't wear freshly laundered clothes even for the 9 days. So I believe in honor of Shabbat, it's only the shirt that is fresh, but they wear the suit that they wear would be a suit that they wore prior. So there's a difference between Sephardim and Ashkenazim with regards to how they observe Shabbat Chazon. For us, we don't feel any difference whatsoever. Okay, so with regards to the law, yeah.
You can take a haircut between Ab, first of Ab and Shabbat. You can take a haircut.
You can take a haircut. Rab Maran and Shulchan Aruch rules that to sport it, taking haircut and shaving is only prohibited Shavua Shahalbo. So you could even go this Friday and take a haircut in honor of Shabbat.
Thursday, according to what he said.
Thursday, Friday, the entire week. You can go tomorrow, anytime during the week, you can take a haircut in honor of Shabbat. Right. So, speaking about Shavua Shahalbo, right, that's when the stringencies, when the laws become even more stringent. Right. So we said you don't launder clothing during that time. You don't wear freshly laundered garments. What about undergarments? So, Yosef says that according to the law, a person may wear fresh undergarments during Shavua Shahalbo. He's not obligated to wear undergarments that were worn already. However, it is customary to prepare undergarments prior to Shavua Shahalbo, meaning they wear something for an hour or so, right, and then it's considered worn, and they put it away, and then you have undergarments that were worn already. This is a stringency. We're not saying this is required. From the law, a person doesn't want to do that. He has undergarments that were washed from before Shavua Shahalbo. He can change to them during Shavua Shahalbo. But growing up, it was customary, at least amongst those that were meticulous, that even on Shabbat Chazon, this Shabbat, so you would start Shabbat, you would be wearing certain clothing, certain undergarments, and then before you go to sleep that night, you put it away, you have one. In the morning, you wake up, you put it away, you have another one. And then maybe you come home from Knis, Shabbat morning, you put away another one until you.
Not considered preparing for the.
So because you're doing it in a way that's not recognizable, you put on your thing. Now you went to sleep, you put on your pajamas, or you change your undergarments. You woke up in the morning, you want to put on something fresh for the morning. Then you came home from Knis. Okay, you could lie down for your nap, before your nap, after your nap, right? So you change it at intervals so that it's not recognizable that you're. On Shabbat Chazon, right? So that's his question. His question is it preparing? So the poskim say if you're not doing it in a way that's recognizable, you're changing at intervals, right? You're changing before you went to bed, after you woke up, before your nap, after your nap. You came home from Knis, you wanted to get into something more comfortable, or whatever the case may be. You can do it in a way that's not recognizable, and in such a way, it's not considered mechin. And of course, your other clothing, your outer garments, you should have something prepared from before. So you should have something that you could wear Saturday night, Sunday, your shirt, your pants. You should not be wearing freshly laundered garments at that time. Okay, so do we have questions?
Going back to the swimming, so where did the stringency come from that everybody...
I think people are more superstitious during this time, and they're afraid that maybe something will happen in the ocean with the waves, so on and so forth. So I think it's more of a superstitious custom that's more recent. It's not something that's halachic. You don't find it in any posek.
Is there any halacha based on that superstition of this time? That it's just a dangerous time?
So based on the fact that it's a dangerous time, Hacham Yosef recommends avoiding having elective surgery during the 9 days. So he says, obviously, if it's a pikuach nefesh, a person wouldn't delay it. But if a person has elective surgery, the doctor says, pick a date on the calendar, whatever's convenient for you. Yosef would suggest delaying it till after the 9 days.
So that's it. Nothing to do with
I didn't see anything. You have for the entire 3 weeks. It's customary not to walk by yourself if you're outside the city during certain times of the day, during the 4th hour till the 9th hour, so it's like from maybe 9 or 10 in the morning until maybe 4 or 5 in the afternoon, you shouldn't walk by yourself if you're outside the city. During the daytime, yeah. And they also say not to hit children. Don't hit the students, don't hit your children during those hours.
What are the customs for the 10th day of Av?
Okay, so for the 10th day of Ab, so the first question is, can you eat meat, right, when you break the fast of Tisha B'Av, right? So Maran writes that it's a minhag kasher, a kosher custom to refrain from eating meat and drinking wine, not only the night after the fast, but the entire following day, right, the entire 10th of Ab, until the 10th of Ab is over. So that means that, according to Maran, the minhag kasher, the kosher custom would be to wait until Wednesday night after sunset in order to eat meat. But based on the fact that Maran wrote that it's a minhag kasher, so it means that he's not requiring it halakhically. It's not a halakhic requirement to wait. And therefore, the general custom in Halab, in Sham, in Iraq, we see it even documented by the Ben Ish Hai, right, was to break the fast with meat. Not only when the fast was pushed off from Shabbat to Sunday, but even in an ordinary year like now, it falls on Tuesday, or when it falls on Thursday, or when it falls on Sunday, the general custom was to break it with meat. But the Hakamim, right, the rabbis and maybe their students, those that were more pious, would observe the minhag kasher, which means they didn't wait until midday, like is a general custom amongst the Ashkenazim, and it's a common custom in Israel today, also amongst the Sephardim, that they wait until Wednesday midday, right? So in Halab, it was either or. The general population, the majority, broke the fast with meat, like is the Ikar Hadin, according to Maran, and those that were stringent upon themselves went to the other extreme, and they waited till Wednesday night after sunset in order to eat meat.
So Rosh Hashanah, how much does it apply Saturday night, Motzei Shabbat?
It applies. It starts. So you're not.
We change, I guess. Sounds like.
So as soon as Shabbat ends, now you want to take a shower. You're taking a cool shower. Right? You're not wearing a freshly laundered garment. You're not going and shaving after Shabbat. It starts immediately with the Shabbat breaks.
Is there anything about Shabbat Chazon that will have any signs of mourning? I know the prayers are in the Sed Ba'am.
Right.
But is there anything else?
You have the Haftarah.
Okay, that's.
You see reading Chazon Yeshaya. So you have the Haftarah.
Practices of mourning on Shabbat, right?
No, it's other than that we say Hajaz for Nishmat. That would be the only thing.
We don't announce the fast.
You don't announce the fast, right? But that's not mourning.
It's different.
Right. Well, there's several fasts that we don't announce. We don't announce Kippur. We don't announce Som Gedalia. We don't announce Ta'anit Esther. So the majority of them are not announced. The only two that we announce are Shiv'asar B'Tammuz and Asarat B'Tebet.
Why not? Why don't we announce?
So we don't announce the ones that we don't announce because they're well known. Meaning it's Tisha B'Av. You've been building up to
why we
it.
announced the two, not why we
Right.
announced
The other ones are well known. You're building up to Tisha B'Av. One comes with Purim. The other one is coming with Rosh Hashanah. So they don't announce them. But to Shiv'asar B'Tammuz, people, when you tell them, next week Shiv'asar B'Tammuz, they get, taken by Shom Gedaya. We don't announce because it's always moved to Rosh Hashanah. Right.
Why did they call the Sad Ba'am and then listen to it and you find out.
Right. So we have a little more time. We can talk a little about the customs of Tisha B'Av itself. Right. So on Tisha B'Av, there's a difference of opinion about when you wear tefillin on Tisha B'Av. There are those that don't wear tefillin at all in the morning, and the first time they wear tefillin is in Minha. There are others that they wear tefillin at home, right? And they wear tefillin at home. And even amongst those that wear tefillin at home, we find different customs. There are some that wear tefillin at home. They read Kadesh Li, right? And then they read Kiryat Shema, and they read all three Perashiyot of Kiryat Shema. They take off their talit and tefillin, and they come to the Beit Knesset, and they pray without talit and tefillin. There are others that they put on their talit and tefillin. They say the entire beginning part of the prayers until the end of the silent Amidah, all the way from Elokeinu, from Akedah, until the end of the silent Amidah at home. They take off their talit and tefillin. Then they come to the Beit Knesset for Kinot, for Echar, for Sefer Torah, and for the end of the prayers. And yet, there's another custom that's become very popular in our times, is that they treat it like an ordinary day. They come to the Beit Knesset, they wear talit and tefillin in the Beit Knesset, and they say the entire prayer in the Beit Knesset. Now, in Halab, they only did 2 of those customs. In Halab, everyone wore talit and tefillin at home. Nobody wore talit and tefillin in the Beit Knesset. And there were those that said only Kadesh Li and Kiryat Shema at home. And then they went to pray with a minyan in the Beit Knesset. And the reason why some did that was so that there should be a minyan in the Beit Knesset. They didn't want it to be where there was no minyan whatsoever in the Beit Knesset. But the majority prayed at home with the talit and tefillin through the end of the Amidah, and then they came to the Beit Knesset for Echa, Kinot, and as we said, Sefer Torah, so on and so forth. I have an article written on this with all the background. If anyone wants that, I could send it to you after, right, with regards to all the background of talit and tefillin. But that was the custom in Halal with regards to talit and tefillin. Now, also we have on the day of Tisha B'Av a restriction of studying Torah, right? We say since Torah is misameach lev, right? So it brings happiness, joy to the heart. So a person is not allowed to study any passage that he wants of Torah. But Acham Yosef writes that a person is not exempt from the mitzvah of Talmud Torah on Tisha B'Av. He's just restricted as to what portions of the Torah he could learn. So of course he could learn the book of Echa. He could learn the book of Iyov. He can learn all the halachot of Tisha B'Av. He can learn the halachot of Abelut. There are certain dapim in the Gemara that talk about Abelut, or there's midrashim about the Horban. He could study those dapim in the Gemara or in the Midrash. He could read the Midrash on Echa. He could read commentaries on all of these subjects that we mentioned. Right. So this is what he's limited to study. There's certain chapters in the book of Yirmiyah that talk about Puranu, talk about the punishments. Those chapters it's permissible to study. So the portions are restricted, but the mitzvah of studying Torah is still there. So a person should occupy himself with Torah study. So the question comes up: can you read Tehillim on Tisha B'Av? So to begin with, a person should not be reading Tehillim. He should be reading the portions that we described. However, if somebody's not able to study the other portions, and if he doesn't read Tehillim, he's going to be doing nothing whatsoever. He's not going to be engaged in Torah at all. So then, in such a case, he can be lenient, especially after Hatzot, after midday, right? Or if he's reading for somebody that needs a refuah or something like that, it's considered like a tefillah, and in such a case, it's permissible. Right? So, in addition to that, the prohibition of Talmud Torah, there's also a prohibition of she'elat shalom, right? Since we're considered like avilim, so we don't greet each other during Tisha B'Av. This applies to the entire day of Tisha B'Av. So what happens? Sometimes there are people that are not knowledgeable in this practice, in this halakha, and they greet you on Tisha B'Av. In such a case, Maran says you should answer them in a solemn way. You don't ignore them. You could acknowledge them, but it's more preferable just to nod and to greet each other in a somber, solemn way in order to have the feeling of the day, the feeling of the abilut, right? And for that reason, it's not proper. Sometimes people, they come and they're in a good mood and they're kidding around before the prayers, after the prayers. So it's not the proper attitude that one should have on Tisha B'Av. When they come to the knis, it's supposed to be a more serious, somber attitude. And the custom in Halab was absolutely to sit on the floor for the prayers in Arbit and in Shahrit. Right? Today it became less common, but we know that in Halab, in Aram Sova, they didn't sit on chairs, they didn't sit on benches. They used to put a little mat on the floor, they called it a dishit, and they would sit on the dishit, and the entire kahal would sit on the floor for the entire prayers at night and in Shahrit. Then when they came back from Minha, that's when they would sit on normal chairs.
Are you allowed to pray without shoes on?
So that comes under the halachot hilchot tefillah. So in a place where it's not respectable to go to an important person without shoes, you're not supposed to pray the Amidah without shoes. And I would say in our times you wouldn't go see any important person with no shoes on. So you wear the non-leather shoes, and that's considered what you wear into Tisha B'Av. But you shouldn't come with leather shoes and then take them off and pray the Amidah. So some people
Discuss working.
what's that working, right? So working, Ma'akad Hadin is not prohibited, right? When the Hakamim say, Eno ro'eh siman beracha, they're not telling you that it's asur, but they're obviously trying to discourage you from working to the greatest extent possible. So, first of all, the prohibition of working doesn't apply to the night of Tisha B'Av, it applies specifically to the day of Tisha B'Av. And the reason why you're not supposed to work is because you're not supposed to take your mind off the abelut. It's mesiyah ta'to min ha'abelut. It takes your mind off of the mourning. So in order to keep your mind on the mourning, you're not supposed to go to work. It's like any person that's in mourning, he's not permitted to go to work during his mourning period. So during the 7-day period, he doesn't go to work. When the 7 days are over, he can go to work. So on Tisha B'Av, it's like we're all mourners, so we're supposed to refrain from going to work. But obviously, it's because it's, like we said, it's an ancient avilut. It doesn't have the same stringency. It's not as hamur as a person that lost a relative. But still in all, even though Ma'akar Adin, a person that has to work, right, he would incur a loss if he didn't work, and it wouldn't be feasible for him, he could work. But if he could avoid working, it's preferable to avoid working. Okay, Ad Kan, Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen ve'amen. Another question?
Meat. When Abel, why do Abelim eat meat? They eat meat, a big nice meat and wine meal.
Right.
The regular Abel.
Right. When they're onen, right, before they bury the dead, they're asur b'basar v'yayin, right, and once they become avel, they're mutar b'basar v'yayin. Right. Good for
It's like a party though, sometimes.
Right.
Why?
I think for the Beit HaMikdash, because there was korbanot, there was nisuch hayayin. So since these were associated, there was the shilamim. All of this was associated with the simcha and the Beit HaMikdash. So therefore, when we're mourning for the Beit HaMikdash, they focused on the meat and the wine more than a regular everyday.